Saya king andas lukunana digula.
In July 2005, 25 Tlingit, Haida and Tsimshian elders gathered in Juneau, Alaska to speak and listen and meet with one another, to tell stories about their lives, their clans, their nations, and their land. Stories about embracing family and community wellness. The year before, these same elders had met to agree upon a common set of traditional tribal values. Those values were then taken to the 69th Annual Delegates Assembly of the tribe and unanimously adopted. They are as follows: discipline and obedience to the traditions of our ancestors, respect for self, elders, and others, respect for nature and property, patience. Pride in family, clan, and traditions is found in love, loyalty, and generosity. Be strong in mind, body, and spirit. Humor. Hold each other up. Listen well and with respect. Speak with care. We are stewards of the air, land, and sea. Reverence for our Creator. Live in peace and harmony. Be strong and have courage. These are the stories they told.
Yedi kuk ayachat was sauk. Yeit nachatsati. Kiks adi ayachat. I'm a child of a Kagwantan. My borrowed name is Isabella Brady. I'm Tlingit, Tsimshian, and Chinese. I'm an international lady of the world, I guess. And I would like to speak about two gentlemen who affected my life very much. I would say I'm typical of a person caught between two worlds. During the time I was growing up, it was not the in thing to speak your language, which suited me fine, since my grandfather was Tsimshian and my grandmother was Tlingit. And on the other side was a grandfather was Chinese from Canton, China, and he married a woman from Yakutat. So they didn't speak any but English in my home. But I felt very sorry for the young people that spoke their language because they were really punished for doing that. And I'd like to talk about Peter Simpson. He's called the father of the Alaska Native Brotherhood. He served for 4 years as a Grand President. He was born in British Columbia and migrated over to Metlakatla. He didn't like the way the Tsimshians were being treated on the island, so he went on up to Juneau and had one of the first ferry services, I understand, between Juneau and Douglas. And his friend Ed Marson was going to Sitka Training School in Sitka. And he told Dr. Sheldon Jackson, he said, when you go to Juneau, there's a young man by the name of Peter Simpson, and he should be here at Sitka Training School. So look for him and bring him over. So Sheldon Jackson did that, and he brought Peter over to Sitka Training School. I think one of the amazing things about the people of that era was that they really believed in education. They just wanted their children to be involved in that. And so Peter went to the training school and met my grandmother, Mary Sloan Simpson, and they were married eventually. And I think the maternal society of our culture is very strong because I am a Kiksadi, and that's because my grandmother was born and raised in Sitka. Well, Peter did many, many things. He was a boat builder, and he had a sawmill on Gravina Island, and because he wasn't a citizen, he couldn't keep it. That's where the plane lands now, in Ketchikan. And he owned several seine boats. He's not a rich man, and he had a boat shop out by the Park Service, and built several boats there. He built trollers and seiners, and he used to build my grandmother a boat every spring to go picking berries and row around the islands. I was her rower, and I had to row over there. And he Les said, asked Peter if he had ever heard about a sawmill being around that area, and Peter said yes. There's one up by Indian River. It was from the Russian time of the Russians. So Les said, how many people would it take to bring that down here and set up a sawmill? And my grandfather figured it out, and they brought the sawmill down and set up a sawmill by Sheldon Jackson. There were a bunch of activists on the campus at Sitka Training School, and they were trying to figure out how they could get more rights for the Native people. And they figured they got together, they'd be able to do a lot more things otherwise. And it was founded on their Christian principles, and the rock was the Lord Jesus Christ. And they were very amazing men. I call ourselves per diem Indians today, but they didn't get paid for anything that they did. And they organized in Juneau, and I have a little booklet that has the handwriting of Peter Simpson in there, mentioning all the founding fathers and the woman that was there to take the minutes. Well, they made quite a bit of progress, and he was the grand president for 4 years in a row. We lived in my grandfather Samsing's place. He owned some land there in Sitka, and I remember that he was Chinese, he was a Buddhist, and spoke fluent Chinese. And I remember when I asked him for money to go to college, he said, no, you woman, you get married and you stay home, you have kids. He didn't want me to go on to school. So I thought that was interesting. And I didn't understand him at all. I mean, he was a miser, he saved all his money and never gave it to anybody. Anyway, Grandfather Simpson was just the opposite. He had an open house and had people to our home all the time. And I believe that the indigenous people of the United States today all knew that there was a Heavenly Father. They knew that there was a Creator before the coming of the white people. I've talked to them across the United States and throughout the states, and their stories correlate with the Bible, the Great Flood, the creation, and all of that. And my grandfather believed, and I've heard quite a bit about transmigration of the souls. I don't deal with that one, but he was called a peacemaker when things weren't going very well, and A&B called for a recess and honored Christian soldiers and have a prayer. And he said to William Paul one day, "This is your land." I think it was up in Haines. "Why don't you do something about it?" And with that, the land claims idea was born. And I remember Peter telling me that someday you're going to go to school with all the money you're going to get for your land. That still hasn't happened, but I mean, we get some money, but not what his vision was. I believe these early founding fathers had a lot of vision. They believed very much in education. I think they believed that we had to go on with the English language and all the traditions and customs. Some parts were good and some I don't think they thought were that great, but there were 12 founding fathers and one woman who was also included when they have their A&B and A&S conventions. They made a lot of progress for us, and that we were able to negotiate on work and also the hospital and citizenship and many things that we take so much for granted today. I know that we need a lot of vision like they had. I don't know where they got it from, but he always said a lot of things that were directly from the Bible. Whosoever loveth instruction loveth knowledge. That if you want to learn, then you're going to want to be told how to do things. And he taught me my multiplication tables, and he always drilled me on that and made me spell everything on sight. And I remember one year that I wanted to have a part in a Christmas play on the A&B hall, and he made me go upstairs and made me recite what I was going to try out for. And so I can't hear you, so I had to really shout out. And so I did get the part, and I was in a little snowball on the stage, and I popped out of there and said my speech. So he really was a great motivator in his own mild-mannered way. And he had a lot of friends that came to visit him, and he was out of his own country, which is out of the Tsimshian into the Tlingit country. And they built a hall up at the cottages, and they played instruments. I don't know how they could do all the instrument playing that they did, but they were just fantastic and came on through generations, but I don't think there are that many today. Anyhow, I give him credit for the fact that I did go on. I did graduate from high school, the first in my family. I went on to college, and I wasn't interested in college, but somehow I did go to college, and I joined the Navy in 1944, World War II, out of college, a year and a half, and took boot camp training down in New York City in the Bronx, and then went on to college with the GI Bill of Rights. And I really think that my grandfather just had a lot of wisdom and had a lot of love for people. So he's one of the men. The other person I want to talk about is Charlie Joseph Sr. He was a man before his time, because all the things that he did, he was a gentleman first and very aware of the fact that I did not understand Tlingit. So he'd be talking and he'd start speaking Tlingit, and I'd say, Charlie, no, because someone may want to study these tapes we're making and hear the language. But he was very much aware of the fact that I could not speak Tlingit. And then he was very patient, and he worked with the young people. We had one of the most outstanding dance groups that ever we had in Southeast, the Gajahin dancers. He was a motivator, the discipline of the dance and learning the songs and the dances, and he was very patient with them, but he was very firm. And I remember him telling a story. We almost couldn't make it into Yakutat. We went on to Cordova, and he told us a story when we got to Cordova that he believed that his life was, he was left here on this earth for the purpose of teaching the young people the songs and the dances. And he said he had gone down in a crash between Pelican and Huna. And it was pretty amazing, because the plane crashed and Charlie went and got the pilot out of the plane, and they spent overnight on the mountain, and they heard someone looking. I mean, I don't know whether they knew they were lost yet or not, but apparently he had broken 2 ribs, and he didn't know that. He was in a lot of pain, and they got back. The helicopter lifted them off. I think he wanted to walk down the mountain. And people said that there's a strong man that came off a plane crash, and they found out later that he did have 2 broken ribs. But he told a lot of stories and was very knowledgeable. I believe he told stories and legends till the day he died. I mean, he just had a phenomenal memory. I just am amazed at how much he could remember and how accurate he was in everything that he did. And he always said this to the boys. He said, when I dance, he said, I dance till the sweat's pouring off, otherwise I don't feel like I'm dancing. And he tried to encourage them and motivate them to the best they can. I think one of the successes of the Gajahin dancers was the fact that they had to maintain a 2.0 average that was higher than the school district. And they raised their money to travel. They traveled to Hawaii, Washington, D.C., top of the world, around the island of Kodiak, danced for NCAI and many other groups. And I really believe that that was the beginning of the enlightenment for the people around the state, because he set the precedent saying you have to wear proper regalia when you dance. You must do your dances accordingly and acknowledge who the songs and the dances belong to. We had a elders conference in Sitka, and he had the young dancers perform, and they were astounded at the kind of dances that the young people could do. There were spirit dances, and the people that were there said, we have to talk, so there have been spirits released, and we have to talk to these young people. And so they listened. They didn't understand, but that's a book called Because We Cherish You. I was talking about the grandchildren. And so the people, well, Charlie asked them, he said, if what I'm doing is wrong, then let me know and I won't do it anymore, because it was against the clan system and to be teaching all the different songs that he taught them. But I think that they were such a great group of young people, and I really believe that the discipline of the dance is what helped so many of them. And so with that, I believe that all the elders there from Southeast said, we believe what you're doing is right, you should continue it and not stop. He also was very spiritual, he was Orthodox, and he really believed, had a firm belief in God, and he believed that his life was spared to pass on all this knowledge, and it really opened the way for a brand new way for the Tlingit people. And also, I believe that Peter Simpson, with he's training at Sitka Training School. He only went to the 3rd grade, but both of these men did not go far in school. I think we put too much emphasis on all the degrees, bachelors, masters, doctorates, and Charlie said this. He said, I'm nothing, I don't know much, and I'm not very, well, he's trying to say he's not very smart. I said, Charlie, I said, please don't ever say that again, because with the knowledge that you have your doctorate in the way of our people. And I think because Charlie was able to do that, a lot of the other people, the Tlingit people throughout Southeast, did a lot of taping, recording, and Sitka, and we have a big bunch of materials that need to be developed of earlier on, say the 70s and on through the 80s. And I really believe it was fortunate that we have this time to share with each other. I've learned a lot from the people that have spoken in our group, and I think that I'd like to thank the TNH and all the people who helped to promote this program. Will Cheesh.
Alisaya King Andas Lukunana Digula Digwa Wagina Nuya Daskit Alung Kilkana Digula Digwa Yahuwah Lihiyai Yahuwah Lihiyai Yahuwah Lihiyai Yahuwah Lihiyai Yahuwah Lihiyai Yahuwah Lihiyai